My name's Glenn Horr, and the birth is 2/22/1957, and I was born in Florida, and ended up growing up on a small farm in western PA, West Virginia area, and that probably influenced me some in doing craft work, always wanting to make something. I worked with my uncle for a while in the sheet metal heating business, so I learned some craft there. And high school shop class, took various classes there, metalworking, welding, so probably influenced some forging there in shop class. So I wanted to get set up on my own, so I looked around for found an anvil at a yard sale, and a friend of mine worked for the railroad, and they quit using hot rivets, so he got me the forge. They was cleaning out of the tool car, and he said, "You want that forge, Glenn?" I said, "Yeah, I'll take it." It was a rivet forge, got me started, so I had a way to heat something, and I was just teaching myself for a while, then went off to some workshops at Pioneer Crafts Council, which is now Touchstone Center for Crafts. Took a workshop there one summer, and then later on I was going down to Cedar Lakes down in West Virginia at their conference center, doing some workshops down there, and just teach myself, reading some books, which was harder to find back there in the late 70s, early 80s. There wasn't as many books around like there are now, and obviously all the YouTube stuff to get information. So it was seeking out other fellows that was doing blacksmithing. I met a fellow in Wheeling, and then I met another fellow out in PA, a couple older gentlemen that, you know, told me about some stuff and put me on some ideas and so forth. But I really think that a lot of it come from just getting out there and doing it. And, you know, a lot of it was self-taught at that period.
Do you remember a specific moment in your early years that you remember being inspired to do blacksmithing? What was your first exposure?
Prior to doing it in school, it was most likely the blacksmith Orr's farrier that was doing my mom's horses at the time. And I remember being fascinated and watching him do the hot shoes and stuff, so it was probably somewhat of a influence, but not really wanting to do farrier work. I was more wanting to make components or fix stuff or whatever than doing that. And I always liked to, you know, make stuff, so that was kind of the direction I was going. Visiting Williamsburg. You know, talking to the fellow, when I was there visiting, I talked my way in to talk to one of the master smiths. They took me to the back and showed me around a little bit. I told them what I was doing, and so I got some pointers from them. I can't think of the fellow's name at the time, but that would have been early 80s or something like that when I went down there one time.
So the first time you hit hot iron with a hammer, you were in high school?
High school shop class, yeah. Mm-hmm. What we called the vocational classes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you go to college or?
No, I never went to any kind of college or anything. Just some night school for welding and metalwork, and then craft schools.
After high school, did you start working as a blacksmith?
I was doing off and on, you know, and in between, I worked at a truck stop at one point, you know, like a lot of teenagers, getting little odd jobs here and there. And there's It was a good bit of farming still compared to nowadays, but when I was growing up, there was quite a number of dairy farms around the region, and they were always looking for summer help. And I remember working with a couple other fellows in a couple summers on the dairy farm. And this is, you know, something to get some cash. But I was doing some blacksmithing, and then, like I mentioned before, working for my uncle in the heating business. And
At what point did you decide to make it a full-time career?
I'm thinking it was like 1977 or 78. I was really getting to making items and doing some craft fairs. And then it was sometime around that period that I had found out about a shop that was for sale. And the fellow had a private shop set up. He was a smith in a steel mill. And I ended up buying that shop, and that really set me up with a nice anvil, power hammer, and tooling, and I could really go at it then. I really kind of advanced and started making a lot of small items for the craft show circuit. And I did shows around Pittsburgh and in the western Pennsylvania area. Would go out to some of the festivals and set up a forge and demonstrate for the weekend, and that was always a big draw. They wanted somebody to do forging work, and I had a portable forge, and I'd go out and do that. And so you know, I'd met some other older smiths that way that had showed me some things and talked to. So yeah.
Were you in the craft show circuit for a while?
Yeah. I did shows all around the eastern states here. I did the Baltimore Winter Market there for a number of years. It was the ACC craft show in Baltimore. That was usually like the end of February. You know, the large juried shows. So yeah, and in between doing commission work, kind of got away from the craft shows here probably 10 years ago or more. Just kind of really been doing architectural commission work, small stuff, small custom work. And
who were early mentors for you that were instrumental in your career?
Well, taking the workshops down at Cedar Lakes there, we had some of the biggies at the time, like Jim Wallace and Dimitri Giacaris, Darren Meyer. Trying to think of who some other ones was. Some of the other big names at the time, back there in the mid-'80s. So yeah, there was some of the inspiration folks that, Noel Putman was one. I mean, I'd met him at some of the conferences early on, and talked to him about stuff, projects, and so forth. Yeah, there's been a number of their years. I can't think of some of the names right off the top of my head now. But.
Was there one person that really helped to mentor you, or you're mostly self-taught?
Mostly self-taught, yeah. Other than just talking to folks at a workshop or at a conference, you know, getting to know some folks that way.
I understand you went to the Yellen workshop in the 80s?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So yeah, I was applied to go to a workshop at the Yellens there, and we used to build a gate. And Francis Whitaker was the kind of the master. Fred Chris was there. I remember Peter Renzetti and the other. There's a couple other fellows that still are doing work. I can't think. There's a fellow up in Wisconsin, and another fellow I think in Colorado is still doing doing stuff. Met them, kind of kept in touch with some of those folks. But yeah, it was a fantastic workshop. We designed a gate and built a gate for Harvey, memorial gate for Harvey Young. And so yeah, it was quite an experience. So we all had different parts of the gate that we were responsible for at the initial forging stages, and different crews was working on like some assembly of the gate as it progressed into assembly and finishing. So
are there books that were formative for you that you referenced, or if you could name your top 3 blacksmithing books, what would they be?
I think early on it was Jack Andrews. Also, he was there at the Yellen workshop too, kind of like an overseer. So the Edge of the Anvil. Trying to think of some other ones. A couple of the was it Fritz? A couple of the German books I had picked up at an early conference.
Fritz Kuhn.
Yeah, one of the and so yeah, one of the early conferences I went to, they had a couple of the Germans or Czechoslovakian fella down at Cedar Lakes conference when they had the conference down there, and I was actually a demonstrator assistant, so I worked with them, you know, ran the forge or whatever for them, so yeah. But there's so many books out there now that's great to look at for inspiration and instructional stuff. I think from the early books I saw that I could get my hands on was more industrial, some early, just, you know, had a little bit of industrial forging techniques, but nothing like the decorative or architectural type of.
What type of work do you like to do if you have a choice?
I've been enjoying doing the organic forms, so the leaves, you know, and vine type of work. So I've been enjoying that. I've done several projects on that style. But, I kind of lean toward more traditional forms among the projects, like larger projects or something. But, some with organic forms, other more traditional line with scrolls and real traditional joinery type of work. So a combination of that, or whatever their client requests maybe would be.
Do you find that do you think you have a niche, something that sets you apart as a blacksmith, your own style?
I think a lot of people do. I don't know, maybe my leaves. Some people like my little scrolls. I'm pretty efficient at doing a little scroll, tight little scroll without any tools, just with a hammer. Mm-hmm. And some people recognize that as my work. And,
something I've noticed about your work is I think it's very clean. Mm-hmm. It looks very precise, very clean.
Yeah, I try to go that direction. I think one of the first fellows I talked to mentioned that to me. He says, try to, you know, forge it, but don't over texture it, or I might have been doing like purposely textured work, and for what style I was doing, that was like overdone, and they suggested it, you know, forge it out, try to keep it clean as possible, but so especially like colonial work, you don't want to have it banged up with a bunch of ball peen texturing like you kind of see sometimes, and so yeah, I think hammer control and, you know, precision forging, you see that, but it's not like overly done.
What inspires you as an artist even outside of blacksmithing work, do you draw inspiration from anything?
We do like to go visit museums or art exhibits when we're out. If we get a chance, we're out traveling. I always like to go take a look at like the exhibits to see what other kind of art's out there, be it painting or some kind of abstract sculpture or something like that. Just kind of enjoy looking at that stuff. Nature, like again, you know, studying nature, using nature as an inspiration for some of the organic styles. So, but we visited Mass MoCA. It was a huge museum up in northern Massachusetts there, and it was a fantastic place. They had some really neat kind of abstract art, just on a huge scale, and it was kind of neat to see. And, yeah.
Do you find that there's been challenges for you as a self-employed artist? You have to be a marketer and a salesman, and
Yes.
the buck stops with you. Like you have to do everything. Do you find that there's been challenges for you that you've had to overcome, or have you had to learn skills to bolster different parts of your business?
Oh yeah, I think as a one-person studio, you know, you have a lot of different hats per se, and obviously some of it you do better than other. You try to learn. I mean, I picked up on the computer stuff when we first got computers. I kind of picked up on that. Use that as an advantage on some things. Correspondence with clients has been a lot more efficient that way, email or what have you. And but yeah, I've gotten away from trying to do my own taxes per se. We used to, but that's become a real time drag. So we've kind of got away from that. And but yeah, managing a business, trying to have a time frame on stuff, especially when you're doing craft shows, you've got certain deadlines you have to meet. You know, having somebody do slides or trying to do slides for yourself, I would do that. Then I ended up having somebody else do slides for me. When that was the jurying thing, it was like done with 35mm slides, and so you had to get somebody to shoot those, and you know, get those processed and shipped off, and so forth. So, but yeah, there's a lot involved if you're just a one little person. So you try to manage that. And Susan, my wife, she would help me out with that some too when she could. She was a librarian for a number of years after she got involved with the school system. And, but she was a potter. She has an art degree in ceramics. So we did that together for a little while, and so yeah.
There's been a shift in how our culture perceives blacksmithing in the last several years, especially with media and different shows on TV. Have you seen this as a good thing, or how have you seen the culture change? I mean, you've been around for 40 years.
Yeah, I think the interest, it's sparked a lot more entrance in the craft. In different media, there's certain ones that kind of concentrates on the cutlery side of things, I guess, knife making and so forth. But it definitely has sparked the interest in people wanting to learn some blacksmithing. I've had requests about doing classes, and I do teach at Touchstone Center for Crafts, and I've been teaching there for a long time, beginners classes. But I I see people come in there with some knowledge of the craft, but not so much. I don't want to be negative, but they don't have any like hands-on as they're familiar with the craft while watching that stuff, but the hands-on is lacking. But that's where I see where a craft school can come in, play, where they can come and actually do some hands-on to learn the craft. I don't, let's put it this way, I really feel that hands-on and lots of hands-on is the only way to really learn this craft. And you gotta have that hammer control, because otherwise you're not going to be efficient at forging, which is important.
Do you think that there are character traits that need to be learned? I think from my experience, patience is a huge asset when you're doing blacksmith work.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point. I find where some people don't have that patience. They want to, in this day and age, everything's so instant, and that's not the case with forge, where you got to be really patient, and it takes a little bit of time. So you do have to develop that kind of like not to be hurried about it. Kind of simply put. I guess another point is to look and study older work for like the craftsmanship. I think that's lacking in some newer stuff or work. People are not really respecting the craftsmanship. It's kind of just haphazardly done, in my opinion. So I know that's kind of like one of those words that I don't know if there's any true explanation to it, but I see it, you know, when you see it, I guess, the craftsmanship of a piece. I think it looks on how it's finished, how it's assembled, and so forth. So
how would you you started to define it there, but how would you define good craftsmanship?
I would say it's the quality of how you approach your work, and be conscious on how you're doing your work, finishing it well, taking time in doing it, and study older work on how it was done. I mean, that's kind of what I've gone to different, looking at Yellen's work or other older work, to kind of see how it was done, and so kind of learn from the masters on, but I don't know. Do you feel that craftsmanship's a learned thing, or is it a inherent thing, type of a thing? I think it can be both. I think if you understand the work and approach it, and take your time at it, and not, you know, understand the process.
I think hand-eye coordination is something that people are born with. It can be developed.
Yeah.
But I think it's also pretty innate with some people, in the same way that athleticism would be.
Right, yeah.
And also, some people have the skill of attention to details. They notice subtleties and texture, while other people don't necessarily notice.
Right, yeah, I agree, yes.
But all these things can be, what's the word? You can take those and form them into a skill.
Right.
You can expound on them. But if you're not born with it, similar to sports. If you're not born athletic, it's really hard to teach athleticism. I think there's something similar with art and craftsmanship. You have to have a certain level of innate skill that then you can take and mold into a craftsperson.
I don't know, I kind of look at it too on maybe how you were initially raised too, you know, coming up as a child and what you might have been exposed to or not. If you're not exposed to those different kind of either some kind of crafts or art or just you know, hands-on type of approach of the trades, I think that's where, you know, my stepdad was a mechanic, so he showed me mechanical stuff. He was a heavy equipment mechanic, and then my uncle, you know, did the heating business. So I worked, you know, learned skills and patience on how to put stuff together properly. So I think that has something to do with it too. In shop classes, you know, we had, they really ingrained in certain procedures and safety and all that in those classes. So I think that's important. I mean, you can learn stuff from the YouTube per se or reading, but like I said before, it's like a really hands-on. I think
I find with myself that I have to be very disciplined, self-disciplined, especially being self-employed.
Yeah, that's a trait that is something you have to kind of develop, I believe.
Yeah. I'm personally, I have some, you know, I get distracted easily and want to go from one project to the next. Throughout your career, have you found yourself developing good habits that you try to stick to so that you can stay productive in your shop?
Yeah, I mean, you want to try to do that. I mean, obviously life gets in the way sometimes, but yeah, I've been, you know, trying to be out here every day and try to work on a project, try to keep on track on projects. There's been times where some larger projects have dragged on and you kind of start getting, you know, maybe frustrated, maybe not so much frustrated, but you're just, you know, when you want to get this done, you know, but you still kind of have to be patient with the project. But
are there any habits that you try to stick to? Like, I don't know, do you wake up at a certain time, or do you write in a journal every morning? Are there things that you do to facilitate?
Yeah, we've been, well, there for many years when Susan was going to school, we were up early. And my daughter, when our daughter was still living with us, you know, they were both going to school early, so I would get out here and after they had left and get going. Maybe a little bit later nowadays, but we still kind of try to get up at a certain time and do breakfast, and I get out here and or seems like mornings have been the best time for me to do any kind of correspondence or design work, or, you know, work on project design. And then I get out here and work most of the day and try to keep on track for a project. Sometimes I'll have a couple, three going, but here recently I've been trying to just concentrate on one project at a time and not get distracted in so many different ways, because some of the projects you got to be pretty mindset on it, because you got a lot of details you got to keep track of and stuff, especially architectural stuff. You got to have everything going in the right direction. And some of the little some of the little production projects, you know, I'll do a little bit here, or I'll do a lot of prep work at a time, you know, either in the evening or something, So then I'll have a bulk of that stuff kind of going at a time. And like I got a bunch of hook stock that I've like prepared for the next step. So I'll do a bunch of steps, and I'll do a bunch of leaves. I got these leaves started, so I've done the ball and the draw out, twist, and I'm ready to do the final bending and shaping on these. But I'll do a few at a time, just to kind of, finish up the day with if the fire's going. And
for myself, I've developed mantras that or phrases that I'll repeat to myself that help motivate me or help me make big decisions. For example, early on in my blacksmithing, I was intimidated to take bigger jobs, and I came up with this mantra: say yes first. And to me, that means that I would say, yes, I can do it, and then I would figure out what I needed to figure out to get it done.
Right.
Do you have mantras or things like that you've learned over the years, things that you tell yourself that help you make those decisions? Have you
I guess I probably have, but never really
coined any phrases or anything?
Yeah, coined them down or really like vocalize them, but similar to what you're saying, if somebody's asking you about a project and you feel intimidated about it, maybe kind of look at it and says, oh, yeah, I'll take that on, and then, like you say, figure it out as it goes, and because all projects are going to be something new or different that you haven't really done before, maybe, and you kind of, some of it you got to learn on the fly or learn on the project. Trying to think of something that I guess one thing is don't get I've said I've gotten frustrated, but try not to be frustrated with if something goes wrong, or it's just part of the process. Start over again and try to do your best the second time around or the third time around or whatever it might be. You're doing something that doesn't come out well, try it again, and do test pieces to figure out what might work best or whatever. And I still burn stuff, it's just part of you're heating up metal in a hot fire, and 1-2 milliseconds later, if you don't pay attention. So, that kind of still happens. Everybody kind of has a little wonder sometimes. You're thinking about something or whatever, but it's just part of life, I think. But don't get overly serious about it. Be consciously serious about it, but don't what I want to try to say, don't degrade yourself or whatever by getting frustrated with them.
I've noticed you're very safety conscious.
Yes.
In your shop. Tell me about that, because I've seen some cavalier blacksmiths who aren't as safety conscious as yourself. What are things that you really try to take care of and protect yourself?
Well, eye protection for one, and that was really ingrained into us in high school shop class or in trade school. I did a welding thing one winter, like night school. So I'm really conscious about wearing eye protection. And as far as ear protection, I got that from a older smith that I talked to that was hard of hearing, and he just blamed it for all the years of just noisy in the shop or from the anvil. So so I've been wearing hearing protection for quite a while now.
Can we show them your eye protection
Yeah,
here?
sure. Yeah, so I use these over goggles. These are nice with somebody that has description. They really give all-around protection for scale or grinding or whatever. So, yeah, I really prefer these. And then muffs. I've been wearing muffs for a number of years. I started out wearing the foam, and I got an ear infection because I was every day plugging those in and packing in the wax. So I started to move to these where I'm not pushing those foam things into my ear. They're all right for one off day or something like that, but I found every day they was getting to be a nuisance and plugging up my ears. So I went to moved into these.
Do you find that the muffs ever press your glasses frames into your head? I've had that trouble before.
Yeah, they do a little bit. These have a pretty good cushion. Mm-hmm. I had a set earlier that somebody recommended, but they had some kind of fluid in these, and they worked pretty nice. But then they got a leak. I think a piece of scale or something hit it, and they leaked. So I moved into these. But I switch these out every now and then, or either put new cushions on. You can get some of these. You can get replacement cushions, but they seem to work pretty well.
What about ventilation, and you work with coal and welding and things like that?
Got a pretty good flue on the forge. I do have a fan that I turn on every now and then to kind of flush out the air in the studio. Got a dedicated vent for welding. I ran a couple fans that circulate the air, try to filter out some of the debris, but and I'll obviously wear a mask if I'm doing some really heavy grinding or something inside here, but try to do heavy grinding or stuff outside if possible. But yeah.
I was going to ask you about back to design work. Do you follow certain parameters, or do you have rules of thumb when you're designing pieces? If you have like a gate or something like that, I know I keep in mind things like the golden ratio, having an odd number of leaves, 3 leaves or 5 leaves or something like that. Is there anything like that in your design work that you utilize?
Yeah, I would say I'd have similar concepts. Try to use that. The third concept, 3 or so.
What would some of those be that come to mind? I guess I was doing coat racks and stuff, so usually 3 to 5. Sometimes I'll do a 4, but it kind of that odd number ratio. I think the top of my head right now, any larger projects that was like that, but similar ideas on stuff. I know sometimes figuring out the scale of what size material to use can be in the forefront of my mind when I'm trying to design something. Is this bar big enough, or is this leaf going to be big enough to be seen or not seen?
Yeah, that's that's an important consideration on some projects on how it's going to be viewed, either up close or if it's only going to be from a distance or whatever. Did a few weather vanes at a time a while back, and that's a really important concept to think about a weather vane. You know, you're looking at it right here, but it might be 50 feet up on the roof, and it's going to look a whole lot different at that distance. So, got to kind of think about the perspective on things like that.
It's of personal interest to me because I have a little bit of a sales background before I went full-time into blacksmithing. Walk me through your sales process a little bit when you're working with a new client. Do you use contracts? Do you take deposits? And how do you figure out how big a deposit needs to be? Are you charging for sample work? Do you always do sample work, or do you charge for your drawings? Does the client keep the drawings? Those sorts of things I find interesting how they vary from smith to smith.
Yeah, right. I've done a little bit of most all that. I'll do some of the larger projects. I'll do a sample mock-up of like a gate or something, maybe, or railing. I've done that in the past, especially something that has some organic in it or organic forms or something. I'll do a mock-up of that to kind of get the idea and a scale, present that to the client. I usually keep that piece as a sketch and iron type of a thing. Is it's part of the process.
Do you charge for it?
No, not usually. It's kind of built into the price of the project, and then I keep it. If the client wants it, but usually I haven't really had that request. But and I haven't done an extremely amount of that type of work. Maybe once a year or something. I'll do something along those lines. But as far as like this correspondence back and forth, sometimes as this client says, I want this. I got this space, want something in it, I designed something and they're okay. Here recently I've been doing some stuff with a fellow. We've been back and forth for 6 months or more on trying to come up with a design, and I don't know. I had some ideas, but he changes it, and so that's been kind of a back and forth for a while. So we did. At that point, we come to agreement on a larger project. I'll write up an estimate, suspected of what is involved, and present that to them, and ask for. I'll do an estimate based on material costs and time, and then if it's a fairly large amount, I'll ask for a third down to start. And then hopefully it covers, that will cover materials and some of the design time. Larger ones, we've added in some design time, but some of the littler stuff, is nothing that's too involved. It's just part of the project. And some stuff's just a real quick sketch out. Kind of on the fly. The client just wants something that fits the space. And then like a gate or a railing or something obviously is a lot more involved because it has to fit into a required location. But yeah, and I've been doing installs. They're usually a time frame thing extra. I might try to figure in something, but sometimes that's like unknown. If I can find out something about the location, either from the client or the builder, about especially like walls or floors or whatever.
Are you charging? You give them an initial estimate. Are you giving them a set price and that's the cost, or do you get time? Do you try to get time and material for your work, or do you do both?
A little bit of both sometimes. Usually, I find that some clients want a kind of a firm upfront cost, so I really try to figure in a time thing. Some projects, I'll break down every single little component into some kind of time estimate and then put all that together, and then maybe even add in a what I call a fudge factor at the end to kind of hopefully cover, and then add in material cost. Especially material costs have gone up, so some projects I wasn't too concerned about years ago, but the cost of materials has really increased, so I've really been more conscious on adding in a percentage for the cost of the material, and especially if it gets into any kind of non-ferrous material, that's extremely expensive nowadays. But it's like I did a curved railing project here recently, and it was a little bit involved. I've done some, but going up a curve, you got two different kind of planes to think about, and we had to come back and readjust the railing to fit, but it worked out, and so fortunately it was only a pretty close project, so it wasn't a lot of travel time. But
is there a project that sticks in your mind as being maybe the most challenging thing that you've had to tackle?
A number of years ago, I don't even remember the year now, I did a large gate for a church outside of Wheeling, and it took me probably a good 8 months or more to do it, and I was trying to concentrate on that, but then I was trying to keep up. I think I was still doing craft shows, so I had to kind of juggle that into the craft show, to do stuff for the craft show. But it was a two-leaf gate. It was about a 6-foot opening, I think. And it had to be mounted in. It was a thick wall, so they wanted it mounted in the center of that, but it had to fold back around, all the way back around, so it would come up against the wall. So I had offset hinges that I had to deal with, and it was all mortise and tenon, 1 inch and 3/4 inch bar, all mortise and tenon, 4 cross bars, top and bottom, and 2 in the middle with a pattern. The pattern across the middle I picked up from one of the stained glass windows, that kind of like a woven circle that I put in there, and then the rest of it was kind of just twisted bar with a decorative top on it. That was a pretty challenging thing, and getting it installed took us probably a day or so to get everything lined up, drilled, and anchored in place, and then we ran into a hollow spot in the wall, so we had to deal with getting really long anchors back in that, and it was an old church with hollow block walls.
So do you find that you've been at this 40 years? Do you feel like it's been fulfilling?
Yes, I've really enjoyed it, and I still want to come out here and still make stuff. I still find forging hot metal and challenging new stuff to take on. I find that very challenging to take on a new project. Still learning stuff. I still enjoy going to the conferences, workshops. I've been teaching more workshops or giving demonstrations here recently. So last year, last year I went to the BAM conference out in Missouri and demonstrated for them, and then somebody there recommended me, so that fall I went up to Wisconsin and demonstrated for the metalsmiths conference up there, and then recently I was out to the Western Maryland group and demonstrated for them. And the Wisconsin, I did a class, 3-day class prior to the conference, so I was there for like 5 days or so. So that was a nice little get together.
Well, thank you for your time. I was thinking we could end on a fun thing. People debate about hammer styles. What's your main forging hammer, and how did that develop for you?
I got a couple here. I probably started out with basic cross peen. Am I up too high? Basic cross peen, and I moved into making some of my own hammers. And I like these angle peens where it's more ergonomical forging. And I made that one. Then I moved into another one with the hammer face at an angle also. So I'm hammering with my square to my material, but my handle's off to the angle. So it's the same principle as an angled peen. And I find those are very ergonomical for certain operations.
So you've made both of these?
Yeah, I made these, yeah. And I got like a double angle also I've made. So there again, I can peen this way and then flip it over and then be able to peen this way, more ergonomical than if I was trying to use this hammer and peen this way. So I find these angle hammers really, really nice for doing that kind of operation.
So it looks like that German pattern is more your punching hammer. The face is pretty...
Yes, I've used this for punching only, just for hitting punches, and avoid using my forging hammers to hit anything but hot metal. So it's just kind of a thing that I've kind of talked about, different techniques or whatever, that I've kind of just taught myself that not to hit punches with my forging hammer. And
do you have a primary hammer here, or you're always switching between the three?
Kind of switching between the three. I'd say these two are my basic forging hammers for just general stuff like this, small hooks and so forth. Because I took the Yuri Hoffy class, so I got one of his hammers. For heavier, this is a heavier hammer.
I notice your handles are very short.
Yeah, that comes from his style of holding the hammer. Put these here. Avoid doing this. So you hold the hammer this way, so you got a lot of movement in your wrist. So you're holding the hammer this way and hammering down this way compared to doing it this way. You got a lot less movement in your wrist this way than you do this way. So it was just a hammer technique that I kind of picked up from Yuri's class a couple different times. And
so you're avoiding putting your thumb behind the handle.
Right.
And it's pivoting in your hand?
Right. That is supposedly puts stress up your arm. And you often hear about people having, wrist trouble or elbow and as far, I haven't really had any major, health things as far as arm or wrist or anything. So yeah, that's a really good thing to learn, is how to hold your hammer and how to swing the hammer. I mean, I have to admit that I probably started out this way. Then after I'd gone to some conferences and talked and seen some different people that's been hammering for a long time. It's an important way to hold your hammer.
Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate it.
Thank you.